Hi, I'm David Shupan, pastor of Living Faith Lutheran Church, Marumba Downs in Queensland. Looking for some good news? I hope you find it here today. If you want more information, then please go to our website at livingfaith.org.au or look for us on social media. Welcome to Living Faith's Good Friday devotion. If you watched Maundy Thursday, last night's devotion, I mentioned at the start of it that if Maundy Thursday was to be compared to light or dark, it would be twilight, moving towards darkness. Good Friday, then, is the darkness. We can look at it as a dark, quiet place in which to reflect upon our lives. It's a time when we reflect upon the nature of sin and our part in that, in the way we think, the way we speak, and the way we act. But more than that, in the way it's part of who we are. There's a brokenness in the human condition that you and I cannot rectify. We can work to overcome it. We can work on our personalities, on our weaknesses and strengths, and try to be better people. And I recommend that. We should do that. It's good discipline. But we need to remember that we will never perfect ourselves in this lifetime. And that we're going to come up against situations that will trigger us. In fact, the principal of our primary school wrote a devotion which was fantastic, and she talked about the Amygdala Hijack. That when something triggers us, something emotional, which may not be much in itself, but it triggers something old in us, something ancient in us, something from early childhood perhaps, and the emotions come rushing back, and the amygdala, that part of our brain, takes over, and we panic, and we can't process information because the higher level of our brain has just been shut down by this emotional rush. Well, Good Friday's time for that. It's time to think about all of that, the stuff we think, the thoughts we have that we don't take captive, as St. Paul says, that we let run roughshod over us, that turn into words and actions that we regret. But it's a time to reflect on the ancient stuff, the nature of what the church calls original sin in us, or original brokenness, I think would be a better word. Something that came with us from birth and only got worse in our early years. And for some people, way worse than others. Some of us have been spared the worst, but others have really suffered at the hands of circumstances in their young lives. This is a time to reflect on that and what Jesus' crucifixion means for all of that. That there's a way out of that darkness, out of personal darkness into a place of light and a place of lightness in our souls, where we're no longer weighed down or burdened by our history, but where history is reshaped to inform us and to remind us that while we were once in darkness, we don't need to remain there. We don't need to go back there. It also reminds us that perhaps as we move forward in life, we won't have control over all the circumstances that we come across either, and that we may move back into periods of darkness once more. But we'll be able to remember that we were in it once and came out of it. And because we came out of it, we can come out of it again. Good Friday is about remembering the good news of Jesus. I want to show you two skits right now, the Skit guys. The first one is a skit of Judas regretting his actions. We know the story of Judas. We know he kills himself. One report has him hanging himself, another one has him throwing himself off a cliff. Either way, he committed suicide because he lost all hope. He was trapped in darkness and could not see a way out, which is so extraordinarily sad, since he worked with Jesus for probably about 3 years, and he saw the miracles and he heard Jesus teaching. But he had another agenda of his own, and his agenda wasn't met, and he couldn't reconcile his agenda with what Jesus was doing for him. So he put an end to it all. So that's a heads up. If suicide is an issue for you in your life, and you've had loved ones who have gone that way, I'm just giving you a heads up. If you want to switch off now, I completely understand. On the other hand, that's followed immediately. It is followed immediately by a great clip, a clip of hope by Mary, the sister of Lazarus from the town of Bethany. Jesus rose Lazarus from the dead. So Mary and Martha were Jesus' friends, and Mary, she did a wonderful thing for Jesus. You can watch the clip. So if you can't watch the first one, just fast forward through it and realise that the first clip is about despair and hopelessness, but the second clip is about great hope and being able to see through the darkness towards the promised light. I'll be back in a moment.
I thought he was the one. We all thought he was the one. Everyone did. There was a party, and we were all there, and some woman comes in, and she has a bottle of perfume, expensive perfume, and she just pours it all over him. She did that because she thought he was the one. What a waste. We could have sold that perfume and used the money for a greater purpose. I tried to tell him as much, but he came back at me insinuating that he was the purpose. Even so, I believed he was the one. I believed that he was going to turn everything upside down. I just knew it. I mean, people would have followed him anywhere. All he had to do was just say the word, but he wouldn't say the word. Instead, my time has not yet come. That's what he would say over and over to me. My time has not yet come. Are you kidding me? He was raising people from the dead, for crying out loud. He was healing the blind, producing food out of thin air. My time has not yet come. So I forced his hand. I made his time come. Things needed a push, and I was the only one that had the courage to do it. We were all up there eating. We were all up there. He looks across the table to me and he says, "Get on with it." How did he know what I was going to do? It wasn't about the money. It was not about the money. It's just when you have that kind of power that he has, why wouldn't you leverage it to forward the agenda? People listen to him. You know the sound a wave makes after it hits the shore? And how quiet it gets after a few seconds when it stops? That was Jesus. When he spoke, it was like a rolling wave. And the crowds listening, they were the hush at the end of the wave. Because when he spoke, and you were there in his presence, there was no doubt in anyone's mind he was the one. Oh, dear God. What have I done? What have I done?
It came with specific instructions. Use it wisely. My grandmother said, it is only for the most special occasion. It had been a gift from her mother, who told her the same thing. Only for the most special occasion. I held it for years, not knowing what could be special enough for this. Until it was 6 days before Passover. He was reclined, his feet towards me. Around him, his followers. I too was a follower. At first at a distance. But he invited us. The women, really everyone, to come near to hear his stories of God's curious kingdom. That night, I gathered my perfume from its safe hiding place. The room crowded with men. No one noticed me. Without hesitation, I broke open the lid of the bottle. The perfume drenched his feet. With a slight smile, he looked at me. And then I did something I had not planned. I covered his feet with my hair, washing them with my tears. I had no choice. He was Messiah, worthy of anointing. This was the celebration that everyone hoped for, of who we hoped for. I kept the bottle and the memory. The perfume was not wasted. He was the most special occasion.
I hope you managed to get through both of those clips, but if you weren't able to get through the first one, I completely understand. But I hope you saw the second one and paid attention to that. That even when there is darkness, even when the world seems to be falling apart and going to pieces, faith allows us to see through the darkness towards light. That ability to see through darkness we call hope. Faith is a part of it as well. Faith and hope together. And the love of God. I suppose that's why St. Paul said that when all the other aspects of love have disappeared, faith, hope and love remain. When prophecy disappears, when miracles are gone, faith, hope and that deep love of connection to God remains. The Bible reading for today is from Hebrews. Chapter 10, and I'm just going to read the last few verses of today's reading, 23 through to 25. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some have been in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. That's the end of things, you know, the last day. I have friends who are conspiracy theorists or who sit on the edge of that, and for whom the biblical teaching on the end times are very important to them. It's called apocalyptic literature. It's literature that is about huge change, the end of one system of things and the beginning of something new. The great apocalypse at the end of time, when Jesus finally returns, will be such a time. That will be the greatest apocalypse, because it will mean The worst of everything is over and the best is coming. Only the best. No more of the worst. Poor Judas. Poor Judas. Having had the privilege of being with Jesus, with ministering with him, perhaps healing some people by the laying on of his own hands in Jesus' name, was too busy thinking about himself, what he wanted, who he thought Jesus should be, instead of paying attention to who Jesus was himself. Mary, on the other hand, got it. She'd seen miracles just like Judas had done. Judas was there when Lazarus was raised back to life. She'd had conversations with Jesus just as Judas did, but she saw light where everybody else saw darkness. She hung on to hope. She trusted Jesus. That's faith. She didn't trust in herself, in her own understanding, her own abilities. She trusted Jesus. She put all of her faith in him. Because she did that, she had hope. And she was able to move forward no matter how difficult the circumstances had become. And she tells that story of where she anointed Jesus with oil. She knew his death was coming. And yet in all of that, she had faith and she had hope. The writer of the Hebrews encourages us to mix with people of like mind. Christians who think the way we do, and look, let's be real, there's a lot of different thought in Christianity, and some of it's very harsh and judgmental, and even condemns people to hell. It's not my thing. It's not what we do in the Lutheran Church or in Living Faith, at least not in the Lutheran Church I'm a part of. Grace is central to everything. Forgiveness, restoration, healing, that's everything. God is judge. He'll decide in the end, and in the end he chooses to see life for all of us. That's what he wants. In the Gospel of John, Jesus says that when he's lifted up on the cross, he will drag everybody to himself. In fact, he says, I'll drag the whole earth to myself, because Jesus wants to heal and redeem and forgive the whole earth. But it's a free gift. You don't have to take it. God's not forcing it on anybody. It's there as a free gift. But how do you hang on to that free gift by yourself? It's pretty hard. If you don't have friends, if you don't have Christian friends who are good and gracious people, who don't judge or condemn, give everybody the benefit of the doubt, prepared to walk with anybody in whatever their lifestyle is, without judgment, without condemning, just to be a friend and to talk and to listen. If you don't have those people around you, how do you hang on to it by yourself? I can tell you there's no way. It's just not possible. The heart isn't strong enough. Bitterness sneaks in. We become cynics and we start to hate religious institutions. Yeah, and there's good reason for that a lot of the time. But we take along with that all the people who make up that institution. And the institutions are just an external face of an organisation. They're not the people. Within every organisation that seems to be going wrong, there are good people. So find some good people. If you're already a Christian and you're part of a congregation somewhere, make yourself part of a home group, because you're not going to get everything you need from 1 hour on a Sunday morning. Home groups are essential. That's where intimacy occurs. And that's where faith is challenged and where it grows. Where people we trust can ask us questions about our particular stance on a particular subject. They may agree with us, but they may decide to challenge us as well. They might say something like, well, where's the good news in that? Where's the grace in that? How is that forgiving? Are you going to not forgive others, but expect to be forgiven yourself? This is all Good Friday. Actually, this is the lifelong conversation we have with ourselves and with others. Don't stop meeting together. Find a group of people that you can worship with sometime during the week, and a smaller group that you can sit with and talk about life, the universe, and everything. Talk about Jesus particularly, and ask the question of Jesus in that group, what needs to change in me so that I would be healthier in my mind and in my soul, that I would be more generous in my spirit and able to love more deeply and more profoundly, and without giving up as easily as I do. Easter Sunday is coming. I know it's only a time of teaching and all this has happened in the past, but we teach in this dramatic mode, this seasonal mode. Easter exists to remind us and to draw us back to that time when it did happen. And it exists to include us in that story so that we can say, this is now my story too, this Easter story. This is my story, a time of reconciliation with the God of the universe through his Son, Jesus, the King. A reconciliation that brings healing to my mind and to my soul, and that draws my thinking out of darkness towards light, towards resurrection. See you Sunday. God bless.